Thanks, Ken, for that great introduction. I too would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we're meeting today and paying my respects to their elders past and present. As Ken just said, my name is Leah Hobson. I'm the National Disability Insurance Scheme Engagement Project Officer at the Australian Federation of Disability Organisations, AFDO. AFDO is a member of the National Disability and Carer Alliance, which was founded 3 years ago by AFDO, representing people with disability, Carers Australia, representing families and carers, and National Disability Services, representing the specialist disability service sector in Australia. We came together to try and engender a better life for people with disability across the country, and decided as a priority that making the NDIS go from being something that was just a good idea to becoming a reality was very, very important. So why do we decide that? Why do we need an NDIS? At the heart of it and the start of it is that support for people with disability to participate in the community is a basic human right. And it's expressed that way in the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which says that people with disabilities should be able to participate in their communities just like everyone else, and they should get the support that they need to be able to do that. The Australian government ratified the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disability in 2008, and then set about looking at exactly what it is that we're doing to meet the rights of people with disability. As part of that work, and because of lobbying for many, many years by all of the parts of the sector, they decided to look at how disability care and support is provided in Australia. And they got an organisation called the Productivity Commission to do that work. The Productivity Commission is a group of economists and researchers, so people full of fun, who went around and who think about big problems in Australia. They think about issues like health and education and about how our nation can be the most productive possible. They went around the country. They spoke to lots of people with disability, to their families and carers, to service providers, to anyone who would talk to them. And they wrote a report. And they said, as part of that report, that fundamentally the system we have of providing support for people with disability in Australia is underfunded, unfair, broken and broke. And we need to do something about that. The Productivity Commission looked at and identified some pretty key problems and decided that the NDIS was the best way to solve them. The first of those key problems and the core of what's at issue with the whole system is really that simply there aren't enough supports to go around. There's an estimated 400,000 people in Australia, 410,000 people in Australia who need supports because of a severe or profound disability. At the moment, only 300,000 of those people are actually getting that support. So the Productivity Commission noted that obviously people with disability are fighting to get supports. When they do get the supports that they need, sometimes they're not getting enough. Sometimes they're simply not getting them at all, or they're waiting for years and years in order to get those supports. So the Productivity Commission said, we really need to put more money into the system. We need to make sure that those supports exist for people who require them just to get out into the community, just to have the same basic human rights as everybody else. They said that there should be a doubling of the funding that goes into disability supports. And while that might seem like a lot, it's actually about meeting a basic need. So we need the NDIS because it's going to give us more money. But in return for that, the NDIS is also going to provide us with the opportunities for people with disabilities, their families and carers to work, to volunteer, to participate in the community. And that means that society needs the NDIS as well, because ultimately the Productivity Commission, the number crunchers, said that actually The benefits of the NDIS exceed even that really significant cost. And in the long run, not doing anything is more expensive than bringing in an NDIS. So economically we need it. From the perspective of providing the right amount of support for people, we need it. That it's also about the right kinds of support for people with disability. At the moment, the support system is fragmented and fractured. There's lots of different rules in different places. Some places have lots of the same kinds of support, some places have gaps, which means that there's a couple of different problems created by that. Firstly, it can be really hard to navigate the maze of disability supports across the country to find out what's there and whether it actually is going to fit your needs. Secondly, it means that getting the right support can be just a matter of luck. The luck of what kind of disability you have, how you acquire it, and the luck of where you live. So we need an NDIS because it's going to be national and nationally consistent. We need that national consistency to make sure that disability supports are not just a matter of luck. We also need to make sure that the supports that are provided to people give them the maximum amount of choice possible. At the moment, if you're a person with disability or a family or carer, you get supports by going to a service provider or to a government agency and you wait in line and you take whatever they have available. And sometimes you're waiting for a long time, and sometimes what you get is not precisely what you need. It also means that people with disabilities, their families and carers are put into a position where they're disempowered, where they're not treated like equal citizens. They're treated like people who are beggars, who perhaps don't have a sense of dignity. So we need an NDIS because the Productivity Commission said we should be putting the power to get supports in the hands of individuals, in the hands of people with disability, their families and their carers. So we needed an NDIS because it's empowering for people with disability and it gives them the choice that they want. Those are the reasons we need an NDIS, because the system is broken. But we also need an NDIS because people with disability, their families and carers envision a better world. When we talk to people with disabilities, their families and carers across Australia, we hear them say that they want a system that works in the lives they live. They want a system that allows people to express their aspirations and their goals. As I just said a moment ago, the current system is very disempowering. It means you go to someone and you ask them for whatever it is they have. We want a system where people can say, right, I want to be able to, in 2 or 3 years' time, move out of home, or I want to be able to get a job, rather than just thinking about, okay, the immediacy of I'm in a crisis. We want to be able to ensure that people can meet their aspirations and their goals. We want a system, people tell us, that looks at a person as a whole, rather than as fragments. So we want a system that doesn't think about me as a person who needs a guide dog in one corner and then a person who needs a piece of adaptive equipment in another corner. We want to think about a person who has work, who has friends, who has family, who has a social life, rather than putting all of the pieces together through a fragmented system. We want a system that provides security for people with disability, their families and carers. At the moment, the funding that's available is so scarce and so prone to change that people can't plan for their futures. They can't think about their goals and their aspirations, and they're on the back foot all the time thinking about, well, where's the next lot of support going to come from? What's going to happen if the rug gets pulled out from under me? What is going to happen if I, as a carer or a family member, die? A lot of people with disabilities, their families and carers want to be able to plan for the future, and to make even the simplest and basic plans at the moment is not possible. They also want the system to be flexible. They want to be able to think that their life will change one day, that they will move out of home, get married, have a job, have children, retire, do all of the things that everybody else does, and be able to adapt their supports to meet their circumstances. In a society where you have to grab onto what is currently available as desperately as you can, that's simply not possible for a lot of people at the moment. We also need an NDIS, as I said earlier, because it's empowering, because it's about rights. For people with disability to be seen as members of the community, to be seen as participants in society, to be valued rather than to be simply recipients of charity. Thank you very much.